in 2022 calling for an emergency budget. So when the economy shrinks under the Conservatives, it's a national emergency. When it shrinks under Rachel Reeves, everything is going swimmingly. You can't possibly convince people that the economy right now is in a good state when you've even got The Observer, which is left-leaning, saying that the economy is tanking.
So look, GDP figures do bump around from month to month. If you consider the overall picture of the British economy, having secured 3 trade deals, one with the US, one with the European Union, one with India, those are all trade deals that the previous government sought to agree. The Conservatives tried for years to get an India free trade deal and never succeeded. We have come into office and we have done that. When I speak to businesses in my constituency about we had the fastest growing economy out of the G7 countries in the first 3 months of this year. Of course we want to go further.
That was before the April changes kicked in.
More economic growth. So look, you know, we've also, since the election, created nearly 400,000 jobs. We've seen 4 interest rates since we've
Hirings
come to
are
power.
down by 270,000.
Look, when I speak to people in my constituency, businesses and ordinary householders, what they're interested in is, do I feel better off and do I have more confidence in the economy? And so, look, you know, of course we've got more to do and we are never going to be complacent because, you know, making sure that we grow the economy so that we can invest in public services, our schools and hospitals, is the #1 priority of this government.
All right. Heidi Alexander, we've run out of time, but thank you very much for your time this morning. We'll be back in just a moment when I'm going to be speaking to the Shadow Home Secretary, Chris Philp.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power?
Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber.
Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics.
We'll see where this ruling takes us.
These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
School run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
It's a bit of a crash landing there, Chancellor.
Bold, fearless, standing up for you. That's me, 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. weekdays on GB News, the People's Channel.
Joining me now is Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp. Mr. Philp, lovely to see you this morning as ever. The Sunday Express front page quotes your former colleague David Jones, who's defected to Reform, the latest Tory to do so, claiming that the migrant deal with France, quotes, won't stop a single boat. Do you agree with that analysis?
Yes, I do, because under this so-called deal, it's really only 6% of illegal immigrants crossing the Channel will get sent back to France. The other 94% will get to stay in the UK. And obviously, having 94% of illegal immigrants staying in the UK will not act as any deterrent at all. It's another gimmick, just like Keir Starmer's smash the gang gimmick a year or so ago, which you'll notice he never mentions anymore, because so far this year we've seen record ever numbers of illegal immigrants crossing the English Channel, the highest number in history so far this year, and I'm afraid this so-called deal, this gimmick last week, is going to make no difference to that whatsoever.
Well, you say it's a gimmick. The Tories are constantly banging on about stopping the boats and smashing the gangs. And it must have been a gimmick when you were doing it, because you didn't do either, did you?
Well, not entirely, Camilla. So first of all, in 2023, the calendar year, that was our last full year in office, we actually got the small boat numbers down by about 30%. So that was quite a big step in the right direction. We then had the second step in the plan, was to basically remove 100% of arrivals the minute their feet touched the shore, using the Rwanda scheme. And obviously common sense tells you that if you've got a 100% or close to 100% chance of getting removed, then you're not going to bother attempting the crossing in the first place. Something very similar worked in Australia about 12 years ago. Now that went through legal challenges. We had to pass a new law through Parliament. It was ready to go last summer. It was ready to go at the end of July, just after the election. But it was handed to Keir Starmer and Eva Cooper on a plate. And what did they do? They cancelled it just a few days before it was due to start. And as a consequence, instead of continuing the downward trend, immigration across the Channel, illegal immigration has surged by over 40% since the election. It's now the worst year in history, thanks to their ineptitude.
Although there's an interesting expose in the Mail on Sunday entitled Boat Migrants, Crazy Golf Trips for You. And this is talking about Kent County Council splurging all sorts of staggering sums, including £102 on football, lease and goods, Disney and Netflix subscriptions worth £10 and Amazon bill of £162,000. And all the public wanted to see a use of that was ascribed to the asylum budget. I was reading the story thinking, what is this nonsense? How can this have happened? And then I realised that it must have happened under the Conservatives' watch, because before the last local elections, wasn't Kent in control of the Conservatives?
Yeah, well, I don't know when that expenditure was incurred or whether it was paid by the Home Office. It could have happened after the last election. I don't know, because it's the Home Office that runs the asylum budget. But everything you just read is a total. Okay, well, the year to June of this year, that's obviously after the last general election. When whoever was responsible, frankly, that is an outrageous waste of money.
You were in charge until the locals, which were in May. So it's mostly on your watch, isn't it?
That was Kent County Council. Well,
yes,
yeah, but just as I said, the Home Office runs the asylum budget, and Labour have been Labour have been running the Home Office since July of last year. But frankly, whoever was responsible, that should obviously never have happened. That is absolutely outrageous. And I can tell you one thing: if I become Home Secretary, that nonsense will stop completely.
What did you make of Macron saying that Brits have been sold a lie on Brexit? I mean, to be fair, the French president's not wrong, is he? Boris Johnson kept on banging on about us taking back control of our borders, and then seemed intensely relaxed about mass migration.
Well, I mean, first of all, I don't think politicians in any country should denigrate the results of democratic elections, whether those are referenda or national elections. I think any politician of any colour and in any country should respect elections when they happen and respect the views of the public, and to say, oh, they made a mistake or all that kind of stuff, I think is actually damaging to democracy. So I think those words were not particularly well chosen. Look, on the levels of legal migration in recent years, I've said it before, Camilla, I've said it to you, I'll say it again, they have been far, far too high under successive governments for very many years, but including recent years, they've been far, far too high. So, as we've discussed previously, we need to have a binding annual cap set by Parliament.
I'm not going to stop asking you what the cap should be.
We haven't announced a number yet. We haven't. You keep asking, and we are going to come up with a number. It won't be this morning. It'll be at a far, far lower level than anything we've seen in recent years, because it's been far too high. We must end the era of mass low-skilled migration. It's got to stop.
Why hasn't the Conservatives said that the whole Motability scheme should be reassessed? I was absolutely staggered to read that people are able to claim Motability vehicles. So these are taxpayer-funded vehicles. They currently account for 1 in 5 new car sales in the UK. Let me find it. Good God. 20 people claimed cars for food intolerance. 20 people claimed cars for constipation. 150 cars were given to people with a frozen shoulder. Probably not the best idea to drive under such circumstances. Oh, this is my favourite, as it's the men's final at Wimbledon today. 40 cars given for people suffering tennis elbow.
But that is clearly ridiculous. Right? Those people, politicians who tread out here, should not be getting free cars paid for by the taxpayer. As you said, 1 in 5 new cars in the UK is given out under this scheme. So I think, first of all, those conditions you just read out, they should not be eligible for free cars paid for by the taxpayer, obviously. But secondly, we need to have much better evaluations of who is or is not disabled. It's been done over the phone since COVID. That has to end. As Kemi said in her speech, I think on Thursday, we need to have face-to-face, proper face-to-face medical examinations, so that only people who are actually genuinely disabled, given all these extra benefits, whether it's Motability cars or the extra money, instead of having people, a bit of anxiety or whatever, signed off and given a lot of extra cash. We simply can't afford it as a country. We tabled amendments in Parliament, I think it was last week, to tighten up on this. For example, those face-to-face examinations. The Labour voted against those. So we have actually a really clear dividing line in British politics. Labour and Reformers were actually voting higher benefit payments. For example, to get rid of the 2-child benefit cap, so people have 6 children subsidised by hard-working taxpayers. We Conservatives are the only party who want to reform welfare, get these expenditure down. It's forecasting
I'm sure you do.
To go to 100 million.
It talks like 86 billion.
Taxes for the rest of us.
It went up by 86 billion under the Tories, but let's just move on because we're running out of time. The Prime Minister's having his 7th reset, refresh, whatever you want to call it, of the year. He might reshuffle his cabinet. Who does Chris Philp think should be the first to go?
Goodness me, there are so many to choose from. I think, frankly, Keir Starmer himself should be the first to go, because he is the one who's presiding massive tax increases. No, fair enough. Okay, Rachel Reeves then.
Come on.
Because
Rachel Reeves. That's a
and
bit unfair. She was in tears last week.
because she was presiding over massive tax increases. They lied about it in the last election. They said there weren't going to be any tax rises. Then they put up massive tax rises in the budget last October, which has caused unemployment to go up every single month of the Labour government. It's now 12% higher than last year, and it's caused the economy to shrink. Our economy has shrunk for the last 2 months in a row.
I'm not clear what Kemi Badenoch's economic philosophy is.
I
don't think the public is either.
Let me finish this point. She wrote a thing in the Telegraph about this today. So let me finish one about Labour. They're going to put taxes up even further in the autumn because they don't have the courage to reform welfare. Kemi said our approach, controlling welfare, reduce the size of the state, and that will enable the tax base to get down. Kemi is the only leader who's articulating a carefully thought out, credible policy to get this tax bill off the shoulders of hard-working people. But under this Labour government, it's only going in one direction. It's getting worse and worse and worse.
Okay. Chris Philp, thank you. you very much indeed, as ever, for your time this morning. Yes, he's right. Telegraph, op-ed, commentary by Kemi Badenoch. Britain needs a post-COVID reset to back ambition and not mediocrity. We need a reset, everybody. We're going to have a little reset now before we speak to our next guest, Sir David Davis, who's going to be talking about what Macron said about Brexit lies. Did he tell lies? And also discuss this whole idea of trying to prosecute Northern Ireland veterans for taking on the IRA back in the days of the Troubles. So lots more still to come.
Windows 7. God, that's a question. I guess so.
Hello there, welcome to
Maybe.
your latest GB News weather forecast.
I honestly don't know, Spark.
High pressure has dominated for the past week.
I haven't used Windows 7 in a good few years. It depends if your specs are right, though, I guess.
Starting to move in from the
If the other specs are right, I guess the OS doesn't really matter.
Pressure starting to move in, and the risk of some showery rain in places as well. But a fine end to Sunday.
I honestly,
for many
though,
of us.
I couldn't
The
tell
low
you.
cloud returning across the eastern coast could be picking up for some showery drizzle at times. And then as we go through the overnight period, we see bands of showery rain from eastwards. Lots of places will stay dry, but some of the showers start turning heavy across western parts head towards the early hours. And another very warm night to come, temperatures 16, 17 Celsius to start Monday morning. And it's a different picture out there. We see low pressure starting to move in, bands of showers moving in as well. But it's not wet everywhere.
Have you checked Steam?
Islands starting off on a sunny note first thing Monday morning with cloudy skies above the southeast. Showering bands of rain heavy into the Borders region, Northern Ireland, North England, and some showers down parts of Wales into the West Country as well. Central southeastern parts of England, a dry start, but variable amounts of cloud. Then as we go through the day, we see low pressure edging closer, so showers pushing north and eastward. Some of these turning increasingly heavy. There is some thunder at times too, but as you can see, across some parts of England and Wales, still sunshine to come. Some heavy showers developing, though fresher air moving into the west, temperatures low 20s, still around 13 Celsius for eastern and southeast England. Warming off for one more day, and then later into the evening, showers continuing to push north and eastwards. The wind starting to pick up around some western coasts as that fresher air moves in. Temperatures more comfortable through the week ahead, generally the low to mid 20s, those signs it could get warmer by Thursday.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show from all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
The stories that matter from every part of our lives.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your chatter.
Bold, fearless, and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Gordon, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our viewers and listeners. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/say. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. With me now is the MP for Goole and Pocklington and former Brexit Secretary, Sir David Davis. David, lovely to see you this morning. You've had quite a lot of experience negotiating with the French, Michel Barnier and you going head-to-head during the Brexit wars. What do you make of this migrant deal? Will it actually stop the votes?
No, I mean, they call it 1 in, 1 out. It's actually 17 in, 1 out. If it works, you know. It's completely cost-free to the French. From their point of view, they get rid of somebody who come overseas. From our point of view, it won't actually work as deterrent. I mean, the one thing, just from talking earlier, the one thing about the land is deals with them. It's all together to suit whether it's President Trump or President Macron, and this is a really bad outcome.
People could say you're not in no position to talk. Did you get a good Brexit deal with Theresa May all those years ago?
There was a reason I resigned.
Yes.
Yeah, guys, thanks. Ricochet, mate. Hello, boy.
We simply didn't stand up to either the French or the Germans, who were
Thanks for the gifts, my bro.
trying to make Brexit fail.
Appreciate it.
Despite all of that,
Sorry, mate, I'm concentrating on driving.
The vaccine, we had the advances of AUKUS, we had we've got better regulations on AI than they have now, and of course...
I'm not allowed to drive in real life because my heart issues, so I'm learning as I'm going.
And that's not unrelated to the reasons for Brexit, because the reason they're going to have a penalty with the Americans is because they rigged the system. All this European regulation, which we hate so much, is there to stop foreign countries.
I just restarted my account to start from scratch again so I could relearn everything.
So all those reasons, even
cheers, my bro.
What I would grant you is not a very good negotiation. The outcome is...
Thanks for sharing it, mate. Hey, I just had someone ask me on YouTube if this can run on Windows 7. I was going to ask you later on your stream, but I'm guessing...
Belgium next door. I don't often talk up Belgium, but Belgium in the last 4 years has cut illegal migration across the channel.
We're both in the same boat. Hey Peter, you alright, mate?
So
how have they done it, David?
How the French, how the well, I mean,
This for the live, Peter.
They track down
the like, not the live.
which tell you when people are approaching the beach. They put a few concrete barriers on to stop people getting vehicles on the beach. They do proper follow-up. They've actually arrested about 100 odd.
How is you boys anyway? Good?
So, they've just done the obvious things.
Yeah, it's basic stuff, this. Yeah,
Thanks for the rose, Peter.
About us being sold a Brexit lie then. I mean, when it comes to controlling our borders, we were, weren't we?
Oh, nice. Thanks, mate.
I think in terms of the control borders, there are two elements to this. The other
Are you watching on phone or on PC? Like, what's the live like on the phone?
We should have made them
however you're watching it.
Embarrass the French, frankly, into doing what the Belgians did, and we haven't done it. We haven't been robust enough.
I'm really new to TikTok, so.
That's hardly a new news for me. I've been saying this for years.
No, I know.
So, but the other half of it, which I think you're right on, is the question of legal migration. And every government since Tony Blair's government.
Is it vertical or is it horizontal?
Legal migration is a way of pumping up the economy. There's a problem that starts in the Treasury, and we didn't put a stop to it. We should have done, and we didn't put a stop to it. And it requires a degree of determination. It also requires a big one.
Cheers, Connor, mate.
I've
got to stop looking over a minute, concentrate on driving, Jesus Christ.
Investing in people. There was a story when I was in cabinet with Theresa May, and she told a story talking to a strawberry farmer, and he said, if I don't have these migrants, I won't be able to run my business. She said, well, what will you do if you actually have one? And he said, well, that's good. I'll have to invest in the strawberry business. Yeah, that's the story. Investment in making high productive work. Those are the things we have to do. The Treasury, I'm afraid, was the biggest impediment to that. We have to face it down and do the jobs ourselves.
All right, well, the other thing you're trying to face down is this effort to repeal the Northern Ireland Troubles (Legacy Act. Just tell me, because the GB News audience might not be familiar with what exactly has happened here. You introduced this legislation, I think, back in 2023.
Yeah, I'm better than I was, mate.
Northern Ireland veterans from being retrospectively...
I'm still feeling a bit crap, that's why I'm not like on my FPS shooters that I normally play. I'm just trying to chill out and cool down. It's so hot here.
Labour, I think it's probably the Attorney General for a very large thing at the moment, under the sort of excuse of human rights, have been saying, well, we have to repeal this because you lost a court case. Actually, the court case was still in process when they came in.
Thanks, Keza. Appreciate it, mate.
Frankly, is appeasing Ireland and appeasing a number number of people who want to rewrite history. The IRA cannot represent murdering nearly 2,000 people as anything other than a horror. So what they're trying to do is to drag us down to something. They're trying to say that our soldiers were running an assassination policy. Well, the truth is, they were making decisions in a split second. The three biggest issues were the conflicts at Coke and Clonno and Loughor. I looked at them all in some detail. In each of them, the IRA were trying to carry out murders.
I'm thinking about shipping my Tobii eye tracker over so that I can look around rather than having to use this dodgy D-pad.
Machine gun a police station. In each case, they were carrying out murders or trying to, and the army intervened.
Are you
as I say,
streaming
they
later, Rico, on
split the
Farming
decisions.
Sim?
A number of the IRA were killed. Now that's what happens if you start a civil war, and you can't apply the sort of conventional human rights rules to this. People make decisions in a hurry. Now the government's trying to back off on this. We've got 170,000 signatures so far on
Cheers, guys, for the likes.
For a debate. That debate's going to happen tomorrow. Hillary Benn is going to respond to it, the Northern Ireland Secretary. My hunch is he's not going to have an answer.
What the hell is that? Is that like a peach with a crown?
What they should have done right back at the beginning, what Blair should have done, is have a truth and reconciliation process like the South Africans had. He didn't. He just basically exonerated part.
You got your little boy back there, haven't you?
And left our soldiers hanging. We've got to put that right. I've never seen such a stark example of two-tier justice, of politically driven justice.
Well, let's just talk about that, David, briefly. Sorry, just talk about that, because you mentioned the Attorney General, Lord Hermer, earlier. Now, I just want to caveat this conversation by pointing out that Lord Hermer is a lawyer. He's not got the right to reply here, so let's be very careful what we're saying. He has previously defended Jerry Adams of Sinn Féin fame. So you're saying that he is pushing this from what perspective exactly?
Well, what I'm saying is that the government's approach is one that says this is a human
fair.
I don't read it. There's nobody who's full power of human rights on either side of the house than me. But I don't think I think people like
On the stairs, that's ideal, mate. Just leave him be, just make sure he's got a pillow or some shit. He'll wake up with a crook in his neck house, and that's gonna make him feel pain, mate.
They have to have lawyers.
I hate that.
They do that. No,
I had to buy a new pillow yesterday to stop myself from getting that, to be fair.
To destroy the retirements of people who are heroic, patriotic, fought with skill and courage to defend us. And by the way, one of the
Yeah, thanks for the support, guys.
was the murder rate in Northern Ireland went
My
down
driving is awful, though, I have to admit.
Hundreds and hundreds of people being killed in Armagh, Easter Road, and so on, in Belfast.
Nice.
After these operations, frankly, when the killers were dead.
I was contemplating going to bed, but then I thought, fuck it, I'll just hop on here for a bit, keep myself awake so I can actually sleep tonight for once.
Human rights issue on behalf of the killers, frankly, the murderers who themselves got killed, in my view, is a misuse of human rights.
Very final quick question then. This debate tomorrow.
I get my farming stick thing tomorrow delivered, so I'll hop in your server tomorrow, Rico. If that's alright, mate. You can show me the ropes on Farming Sim 25.
If you think, where do our soldiers come from? You know, two world wars, they were won by mostly young men, but young women as well, from the industrial heartland of Britain, from Leeds and Bradford, from Italy, from Wigan, from Birmingham. These places are now literally what we used to call...
Nice meeting, no worries, mate. Have fun. Yo. That was me not concentrating.
Veterans in this country, many of them live in those cities. It's for them to say to their MP, look, if you want me to vote for you next time, you've got to make sure that I, my family, my colleagues, my comrades get proper justice. And this is not proper justice.
All right, we need to leave it there.
Yeah, that's sound, mate.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us this morning. So we're just talking about civil war there. We're going to be talking about...
It's the same Thrustmaster one as yours. You got Thrustmaster, haven't you?
He's going to join me as President Trump is set to make a major announcement on Russia tomorrow.
Yeah, I got it on the Prime Day deal, mate. It was quite a good deal I got for it, actually. I got a couple other things on there as well, but... You know, it is what it is. Fucking... Oh, mate. Cars. That was also my fault for not watching what was going on.
Wait to get in that sea. Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Hello, well, there's plenty of
Yeah. I needed to get like an extender because I ran out of USB ports at the moment.
Sunny spells, some outbreaks of rain. Canary Islands, a mixture of sunny spells too. Plenty of sunshine across Portugal and Spain, with some showers across the Alps, across the Greek islands. Plenty of sunshine here and feeling hot, and that continues as we go through the week. Plenty of sunshine.
Yeah.
With temperatures
Not concentrate on exactly where you're going and you get smashed up.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, People's Channel.
That looked like an F-22 that just went past. Clip that.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to put through all the noise and
Interesting.
dive in headfirst to some robust debate. Ideas clash. No, because the failure is you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
If you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News,
Good
mate.
afternoon,
Come on,
Britain
oh,
isn't
mate.
just about
What is this
us.
guy
The
playing
wonderful
at?
thing about this program is it's about everyone
Yeah, get going,
watching.
bro.
It's an interactive program.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here. We're going to be talking about
That
it
was
more.
so my bad.
Breaking royal news. Please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons. Very, very curious.
Yeah, I'm just listening to GB News, mate, in the background.
Reaction as well.
Oh, it would be Talk TV if it was a daytime. Can't there? That was like a pickup truck or some shit, wasn't it?
Mornings don't have to be
I
tiresome.
think I need to be picked up.
If you have the right company.
Or go back to driving school or some shit.
Opinion and
This sequential shifting is doing my nutting.
Because when the kettle's on.
Give me power.
Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Yeah, it's fighter jets.
6 a.m.
I thought it was fighter jets.
Channel, Britain's news channel.
That's like a mirage or
Spread the
something. though.
news. You spread the word.
On F-22.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
Yeah, that sound, mate. I got both chats open, so...
Stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless, and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Gorman, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News, People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/news. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yours. Because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Aquaria, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Please join me at 4 p.m. every weekend on GB News, Britain's news channel.
No. Oh.
Welcome back to the Community Show. Joining me now is Ukrainian MP Alexei Goncharenko. Great to see you, Alexei. We had one of the biggest nights of shelling on Friday in Ukraine. Just to begin with, what's the mood like there?
Camila, and the mood is difficult, but unfortunately we got used already to this. Yes, in June,
Okay, I'm going
Russia
over the speed limit.
ramped up its attacks against Ukrainian cities, against civilians, and killed the biggest number of civilians from the beginning of full-scale
Let's
invasion.
fuck that right
Big
up.
attacks on Kiev, Odessa, Kharkiv, and other cities of Ukraine. A lot of people killed, so definitely Putin
Damn, the
feels
steering
himself
wheel.
emboldened. He feels that he made a fool
Blame the
from
human, not
US
the tools,
President
Jake.
Trump,
There we go.
and with his wavering of American support, now
Trump in just a moment. I mean, how do you assess Ukraine's current position in the battle?
It's, you know, it's relatively what we're looking for. Definitely we're in a hard situation. Russia is attacking on all parts of the front line, attacking our cities, attacking civilians, making these terroristic attacks and terrifying people. At the same time, Russia was planning this big summer offensive. It's already middle of the summer. Where are Russian big results? So there is no big results. Yes, they advanced, they took, I don't know, 10, 12 villages more, but it's definitely not the way, by this pace of their, how they're moving now, it will take 100 years for them to take the whole Ukraine, and they don't have enough people to do this. They lost a lot of people during these months, and that's why Lavrov, Russian foreign minister, again is in North Korea, again asking for North Korean troops, because Russia needs more people to continue this attack. So they don't have strategic successes, but they have tactical successes, and yes, it's quite hard for us now.
How is Ukraine doing when it comes to recruiting its own boots on the ground? I read recently that Russia's managing to summon, maybe with North Korea's help actually, around 40,000 troops, but Ukraine only 25,000.
Yeah, you see, look, the situation, Russia is much bigger than Ukraine. Also, they have North Korea as a ally. With all respect to all our allies, we can say that, yes, and again, I'm very thankful to all support we are receiving, but no one from our allies is ready to send troops, is ready to send boots on the ground. So, it's quite hard. But if we will receive more weapons, and if we will receive now, we can stop Russians, even with North Koreans together. And we show it, by the way, how we defend our country now, in a situation like what we have today.
What's the situation when it comes to Donald Trump? First of all, he's paused the aid. He's less forthcoming when it comes to weaponry. What do the people of Ukraine think about the way that the US president has been handling this?
I should be frank with you. People of Ukraine are not happy with this, definitely.
Yeah.
But recently we have some signs of improvement. From the very beginning, it was clear for us that Putin is just playing games with Trump. Trump really wants peace. I absolutely believe in this. But to achieve peace, he needs to speak with Putin in another way. He needs to show strength to Putin, not trying to convince him in anything. It will not work.
Is the game too loud over like what I'm using as the radio?
March, Ukraine said we are ready for immediate unconditional ceasefire right now, and only Putin was declining this. And fortunately, it looks like recently President Trump realized that Putin is just playing games with him. He said that Putin is making a lot of bullshit towards the United States, and he is very nice. That was his quote, President Trump. But all of this is meaningless. That's exactly what's happening. So now we're waiting for tomorrow when President Trump announced some major news on Russia, and I hope this news will be more military support to Ukraine, seizing of Russian frozen assets, and more sanctions against Russia. Immediately when Trump will do this, Putin will change his attitude, and that will be a real negotiations.
I'm just going to say a quick apology for your language there, Goncharenko, but to be fair, you were quoting the president verbatim with the BS word there. I mean, what's victory going to look like as far as you're concerned? We've perhaps been distracted by the conflict in the Middle East, where there's constant talk of peace deals and ceasefires. I don't feel I've heard much of that kind of talk when it comes to Ukraine. What's a good result for you right now?
The good result for us is to stop hostilities as soon as possible. So immediate unconditional ceasefire is something we are ready for, and which is a good result for us. And that what Trump said is an aim for him, and I absolutely believe him in this. So the only obstacle to this is Putin and his wish to continue the war against Ukraine and to continue killings, because he's feeling that he can achieve his bigger goals. That's what we're looking for now. Definitely definitely it shouldn't be accompanied and can't be
Oh, that's
accompanied
why.
with
What an
any
idiot.
recognition of occupied territories as Russian. They are Ukrainian, but they are illegally occupied, and they can be in this status for some time, for a while. I don't know for how long, but they will be occupied by Russia for some time, but they are illegally occupied by Russia. This is important for us. So that's how we see it.
Do you include Crimea in that, Alexei? Because some people in the... Yeah, okay, because some people think the idea that...
Any inch of Ukrainian internationally recognized
Don't laugh at me, Rico, if you're watching me. I can see someone watching.
The same situation. Yes, Russia controls today these territories, but if some thief, I don't know, took your phone and even ran away somewhere where you can't reach him, it doesn't make your phone his. That's the same story. It's our territories, and sooner or later we'll take them back, but not by force, but by diplomatic means. When Russia will collapse.
Yes, use that car, come on.
Sure.
Yes,
sure.
there
I
we
mean,
go.
do you think Putin's been weakened or emboldened? I mean, many have talked about
That was
his
called
health.
utilising
He obviously had the
in-game
whole
mechanics.
attempted Wagner coup, and that ended badly for Prigozhin. Certainly fell out of the sky in a plane. What's your analysis of Putin right now? I agree with you that the flip-flopping by the US president hasn't been helpful. But if Donald Trump does turn strongly against Putin, he could well be in trouble despite the axis of evil he seems to have formed with North Korea.
Absolutely. North Korea will not save him if the United States will really support Ukraine. Putin is emboldened today. I can't say that he's weakened. That's to speak, is he ill or not? I can't, strategy on some rumors about how Putin looks like today or tomorrow. It's not the way to do. We need to show strength to Russia. It's not about Putin, it's about Russia. This country only in history understood one language of strength. When they see strong position, they are backing. When they don't see strong position, they are advancing. That's it, and nothing else will work with them. So I hope that President Trump realized this, and now he will change his attitude to them. And he has enough leverages, enough force in the United States to make Putin really to accept ceasefire and then peace. It is absolutely possible.
Okay, Alexei Goncharenko, thank you very much indeed for your time this morning. Stay safe out there.
Thank you very much, Camila.
Thank you. We'll obviously be covering the announcement that Trump does make on Russia tomorrow on GB News, so do stay tuned for that.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Low pressure starting to move in, so the heat wave ending. Still hot in the southeast for Monday, but many areas turning fresher, and we can see that nicely on the pressure pattern. Low pressure starting to dominate. Weather fronts moving in, bringing the risk of some heavy rain and thunderstorms in places too. This evening time fairly quiet though. As the bands of showers get going, we'll see some hefty downpours developing, particularly across Northern Ireland down into Wales. Some heavier showers developing across Northern England and Scotland during the early hours as well. But another very warm night to come. Temperatures widely 15 to 18 Celsius, so another fairly uncomfortable night for sleeping, and a different picture for Monday morning. Sunny spells and scattered heavy showers developing. So if we take a look at the details, we can see northern Scotland, some low cloud initially, best of the sunshine across the Highlands, drizzly across towards Aberdeenshire, but the risk of some heavy showers already pushing into southern Scotland, clearing Northern Ireland, still some for northern England as well. Bands of showers pushing across Wales, parts of England, but in between, sunny spells and temperatures on the warm side up to around 21 Celsius at 8 a.m. And then through the day, we'll see these bands of showers push north and eastwards, some thunderstorms developing. Could be quite torrential across northern England into southern Scotland come the afternoon. Some localised flooding possible here, but not everywhere we'll see the showers. Lots of places could stay dry, particularly across England and Wales, and fresher for all. The low 20s generally, but still towards 30 Celsius in the southeast, so still well above average for the time of year. Low pressure still dominating into Tuesday, bands of showers, longer spells of rain pushing north and eastwards across many parts. Feeling much fresher as the winds pick up too. Temperatures generally will be around average for the time of year, reaching the low 20s, maybe 23 or 24, and it stays similar through the rest of the week with further rain at times too. See you later.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5.
You got me good there.
Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight on the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace to Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
You might have noticed that despite being almost no media coverage on Monday last week, there has now been near real-time coverage of the Liverpool Crown Court trial of Mohammed Ahmad and Mohammed Ammaz for their involvement in the Manchester airport incident. Now, I've received a lot of questions about this, obviously most of which I can't answer, some of which I can, without commenting on the trial specifically, for obvious reasons. And if you do want my real thoughts about this trial, then you won't get them until the trial is done, of course, but you can subscribe to my Off the Record channel linked below, where I reserve my real thoughts about these things. Please do subscribe there. Thank you all so much for 70,000+ subscribers. Let's get that to 100,000 subscribers, and I will be truly grateful. But one interesting thing at the very outset, the judge in his usual comments to the jury panel, the selection process beginning last Monday, said as follows: "You will have realised from the jury questionnaire, which jury panel members before the jury is selected are provided, that this trial involves events at Manchester Airport on the July the 23rd last year. Those events attracted a lot of attention in the mainstream media and on social media, and it's likely as the trial progresses there will be further coverage and comment. You must reach verdicts based on the evidence presented in court. You must not, I presume that should say, allow yourself to be influenced by anything you read or hear in the mainstream media or social media." So again, with the correction for emphasis, you must not allow yourself to be influenced by anything you read or hear in the mainstream media or social media. And then adding that it's of the utmost importance not to look on the internet or elsewhere for information about the case before the candidates return to court on Wednesday, that was last week, when the jury trial selection will be sworn in. Now, that is critically important because everybody is entitled to a fair trial, and this is why the judge directs the jury not to research anything. But the interesting thing is that the judge here acknowledged that it will be widely reported. On Wednesday of last week, the jury was sworn in, and the judge made some comments regarding legal arguments. The judge said, "I told you Monday that yesterday I'd be dealing with some legal issues that had to be resolved before the trial may start. But unfortunately, they were unable to deal with those issues yesterday, that was Tuesday last week, and we'll deal with them this afternoon, that was last Wednesday afternoon, and tomorrow morning, which was last Thursday. When you return tomorrow afternoon, leading counsel for the prosecution will open the case and tell you what it's all about." Now, I'll come back to some of the real-time reporting in just a moment, which is interesting, but with a very important caveat that none of this is comment on the case itself. It is live reporting or relaying to you contemporaneous reporting on this case, which is important because reporting has to be fair and factual and without comment. So I make that clear. What I will say, however, is a reminder that now the jury has been shown additional footage which was not available initially, and what I can show you is the footage that was originally released, which sparked this concern off in the first place, which was this footage here. I'll turn the volume down so it doesn't blow up. But this was the initial footage that was released, and of course this sparked widespread comments online. It even attracted comments from MPs in Parliament, which I personally think was a little bit premature, because obviously this was a live and unfolding incident, and I think comments should have been reserved. But this was the initial footage that was released, which caused concern. And then, of course, there was additional footage which provided additional context, all of which will be shown, or has now been shown to the jury, and doubtless will be shown to the jury on a number of occasions to show them different angles of what happened, and the jury will be asked to make findings on this. Now, the way this works is the judge controls the trial, controls evidence, deals with questions of law, which will be in the absence of the jury. So if there's any question of any evidence of admissibility, that will happen in the absence of the jury, so the jury doesn't hear those legal arguments, because of course, if they hear the argument about the admissibility of a piece of evidence, clearly they've heard about the evidence already. That might taint the trial and so on. Not saying that that's happened in this case, that's just generally how these things work. And then, of course, this second video emerged, which was leaked/released and by Manchester Evening News. Had this footage here, so credit to them. I've credited them in my previous videos as well. This footage was then leaked/released, published, and showed a different angle of what was going on, and showed that the officers had approached these men, and obviously, as you can see, showed what happened here. Now, again, I reiterate, I'm not commenting on this now that it is a live trial, but this is footage that will be shown to the jury. This was the footage released by Manchester News, and then there is another piece of footage which I understand has been shown to the jury, which I understand wasn't available beforehand. But this showing a different angle of the same incident. Obviously, it's now been emphasized as to the individuals involved to show exactly what was happening, and the jury again will be shown this footage. The jury will be given a number of different perspectives on this during examination in chief and cross-examination. The way that that works is each witness will give their evidence live. In the criminal courts, we have the primary live evidence we call evidence in chief, and then there's an opportunity for cross-examination of said witness. This differs in criminal trials against civil trials, where in civil trials, ordinarily your primary evidence is contained within a witness statement, which is entered into evidence by the court on behalf of that witness. There is sometimes the opportunity to amplify that witness statement, for example, if there's some other information that's come to light, etc. But that differs with criminal trials where the evidence is heard live, and then there's the opportunity for cross-examination. But there is also an additional piece of footage which I understand has been shown to the jury, which I also understand was not available beforehand, which allegedly shows an altercation between Mohammed Ammaz and another member of the public, which led up to this incident with the police. So I understand that this is what was shown to the jury, released by the court, has been reported on, and again the jury will be shown this footage. Doubtless it will be shown a number of times with different perspectives, with examination in chief, cross-examination, putting across different perspectives as the trial progresses. Again, I'm not commenting on the trial because I can't do that because I'm not there. Nonetheless, this is footage that will be shown to the jury. This does go on for a moment. Obviously, this was obtained by CCTV footage. So that is what is alleged to have led up to that incident with the police, for which there is now live reporting of this trial by Manchester Evening News. For one, just reading you some snippets of what have been reported contemporaneously from court here. PC Marsden said he was exhausted and wanted to allow his colleague to carry out an arrest. PC Marsden was exhausted and wanted to allow his colleague to carry out an arrest. He said he wanted to avoid another hostile situation in the car park pay station. Mr. Khan suggested that the man they intended to arrest didn't do anything. PC Marsden said he did not know the grounds on which PC Flanagan wanted to make the arrest. The witness said PC Flanagan had been a firearms officer for 25.5 years. and he trusted him complicitly, as it was said, to make the right decision. I was helping him to the best of my abilities, said the PC. The KC suggested to the witness that he and his colleagues had been acting in concert unprofessionally, and the PC said that would be your opinion. PC Marsden said he needed to get the male to the floor, so the man was in a position of disadvantage. Then this was reported as a key event. I chose to remove myself from social media due to the nature of the risk posed to me. It's reported PC Marsden agreed that the injuries he suffered on the night may have affected the statements that he penned later that day. He confirmed in hospital later he showed a doctor footage of the incident and that he had an X-ray and had problems with his jaw since. The officer also said he had later told medics he'd suffered from insomnia, and Mr. Khan suggested it was because of the video incident going viral on social media. I chose to remove myself from social media due to the nature of the risk posed to me, the PC said. The officer said that he was told by a doctor that he had symptoms of post-concussion syndrome and had suffered minute bleeds to the brain. No one in that room was with us. They watched us getting violently beaten again and again. The jurors were shown body cam footage of PC Marsden later talking to colleagues about the incident. The officer said the video does not accurately depict what unfolded. When it was suggested to him he was putting on a brave face, PC Marsden went on that he was trying to mask that vulnerability from fellow officers. It's a very human feature to do so, he said. PC Marsden said he didn't recall the conversation. In the footage, PC Marsden is captured saying Mr. Amars had headbutted a man and walked off. That officer was later surrounded by 7 or 8 people, and that he had been forced to smash one of the brothers in the face with an elbow. The KC suggested the officer was exaggerating. I'm the one who's experienced that, and that's how I perceived it, having been viciously and violently attacked by both the men in this, said the PC. The officer said the crowd in the original confrontation in the pay station had been hostile. He said no one in that room was with us. They watched us getting violently beaten again and again. Mr. Khan went on, including the women and children. I'm not specifically referring to one individual, replied the officer. Jumping to one of the key events, and I'll link this in the description below so you can go and read it all yourself. I find it fascinating to read how a trial is unfolding, not being there, because obviously having been in and out of court, I can picture myself being there, asking the questions. Key event reported here. This was another PC. I just remember it going black. PC Ward said, I just wanted to try and keep hold of his arm to grab him and pull him off. She added I was probably in fighting mode at that point, anything I could to get him off PC Marsden as he had been kicking him. The officer said, I just remember it going black. I remember being punched in the face and falling backwards to the floor, and everything going black and coming around. The blow was really forceful, she said. PC Ward told the jury, I have never been punched in my life. I've never in my whole time in the police service had someone use that level of violence towards me. I've been assaulted before, but never had that level of violence before. I fell really hard. I just remember thinking he's knocked me out. I hit the floor and everything going black. So again, I will link this below. You can read through the full transcript if you are interested. And again, just to reiterate, all of this, the videos, the reports, they are live contemporaneous reporting. And obviously, you know how this works by now. This is a live trial. They're entitled to a fair trial in order to ensure that justice is fair and the ultimate outcome of the trial is fair. So I'll link this below. Do go and have a read of it. I think you will find it very interesting, and it may inspire some of you to study law. Several people have written to me, in fact, over the last few years to say that they've started studying law because of my videos. And to think that these videos and this reporting has that effect on somebody, I think is a wonderful thing. I think those people will absolutely enjoy the study of law, and I think you would too if you read through this transcript. So read through it. I would say let me know what you think, but obviously generally and not specific comment regarding this trial. Do try to remember the rules of contempt of court. So I hope you found that interesting, and if you do want my real thoughts, once the trial is done, I promise you will get them on my Off the Record channel. Please do subscribe to that down below, and as always, thank you for watching. How then can you have confidence in your Prime Minister that he is acting in the interests of the United Kingdom? This is as serious as it gets, a definitively two-tier system. This is an anti-British Prime Minister. So Keir Starmer's decided to save his own skin from a rebellion in his proposed reform to welfare payments, but in doing so, in my view, definitively creating a two-tier benefit system. I'll explain why I think that in this video and why he might not be out of the woods yet. And also, apparently they're planning to ban adverts on alcohol. Not that I drink alcohol anymore, but more about that a little bit later in the video. So what are we talking about here? Well, you probably haven't escaped the news that 120 Labour MPs were set to rebel and vote against Keir Starmer in these reforms in a vote set to happen on Tuesday. Keir Starmer, realising that he's going to face a huge and embarrassing defeat, has backtracked, caved in to the demands of these rebels by agreeing that existing disability claimants can keep their benefits, specifically with regard to personal independence payments, so that nobody who currently receives it will lose out. But what that then means is that these changes for who is eligible to receive this money, given to help people with the extra costs of disabilities, day-to-day life and so on, will only apply to new claimants. In other words, the befores and the afters, a definitively two-tier system. If you have the identical systematic difficulties now as somebody who, before these changes come into effect, you will not receive the payments, but the previous person will. These changes are set to cost the Treasury around £1.5 billion a year by the end of the decade, which brings the original savings down by roughly a third. That figure sounds vaguely familiar from the VAT discussions we had on school fees, because by some quirk of coincidence, they also planned, optimistically in my view, to generate £1.5 billion from VAT on private school fees. I don't think that's realistic, but again, I've discussed that plenty in other videos. But this is obviously going to put more pressure on Rachel Reeves, as quite rightly pointed out by the Telegraph here. She's going to need to find another £1.5 billion in the autumn budget. So what does this mean? Well, you can look forward to further tax increases in various aspects of life, because they can't, as they keep telling us, magic this money out of thin air. So in order for Keir Starmer to back down on these changes, they have to find £1.5 billion a year. So what is the worst that could happen for Keir Starmer, and why is he not out of the woods yet? Taking those in turn, if a Prime Minister suffers a huge rebellion and defeat in Parliament in the House of Commons, he might then also face a vote of no confidence, because if a significant chunk of his own party votes against him, that obviously doesn't look good. By definition, they don't have confidence in what he's pushing through. This is very different to one of the very controversial bills that was pushed through not long ago, where they were given a free vote, whereby many of them may vote against what the Prime Minister suggests, but in this case, if it is a party line, something they really want to push through, and I understand 127 Labour MPs were backing an amendment to kill this legislation, that doesn't look good for the Prime Minister, and therefore that might trigger at or around the same time a vote of no confidence, in which case that's one way that the Prime Minister can be removed from office. Now, he's not necessarily out of the woods, because just because he's backed down on this doesn't necessarily mean that some of the more hardline MPs will still hold out their vote against the government's wishes, against Keir Starmer's wishes, and again kill the legislation anyway. And again, that could potentially trigger a vote of no confidence. And thus we end up with some really damaging headlines such as this one here. I'll link these articles below. By Cheryl Jacobs, with this surrender to the leftist rebels, Starmer's days as PM are numbered. It is now clear that Starmer is making major concessions to his belligerent MPs to save his political career. A series of compromises have drastically diluted the landmark welfare bill. This is not just a personal defeat. Starmer is a fine line of defence between the far left and the levers of power, is on the brink of collapse, she writes. Rachel Reeves and her Treasury colleagues will conclude Britain has little choice but to continue pursuing mass migration and increasing taxation. But now we're also facing some other suggestions that some of you might think are ridiculous. You might agree with them, I don't know, let me know in the comments. But now we face headlines like this. Now nanny state Labour gets set to call time on TV alcohol adverts. It appears from draft documents according to the Daily Mail that they are literally planning to ban adverts for alcohol and limit opening hours for shops and introducing a minimum unit pricing. Now, it depends on how you look at this. If you look at alcohol as something that you really should cut down and you really should get healthier and you're planning to give up alcohol as I did about 2 years ago now, believe it or not. I gave up alcohol, and as it happens, I have a really interesting story to tell you about that. So having given up alcohol for 2 years now, and coming into the summer, and if like me you're going to keep training, you really do need to stay hydrated. That is where a fantastic partner of my channel comes in, Holding, who produce hydration drinks, iced teas and energy drinks, but not full of all the usual junk and sugars that you might find in some of them. In fact, there is zero sugar, they're all natural flavours, and they're full of vitamins and antioxidants. I still prefer the strawberry kiwi flavour, even though they do a whole range of fantastic flavours, including some brand new ones they're bringing them out all the time, as well as milkshakes and the iced teas. The range is just phenomenal. You fill up a bottle, you put 1 spoon of powder in there, you give it a shake, and you get a delicious drink which, as I mentioned, is full of vitamins and antioxidants with zero sugar, unlike a lot of the drinks that you find out there. The newest flavours include pineapple and coconut, lime and mint, and strawberry and lime. And if you don't know what to go for, you don't know what flavour you might like, I'd suggest going with the Starter Set Deluxe, which has 42 servings of a range of different flavours. Plus, you get a nice one of these to go with it as well. And as you might expect, you get a discount with my codes. Just use the code Barrister5 for a straightforward £5 discount off your order. Or if you want 10% off, just go with the straight code Barrister. That might do for a larger order or an ongoing order. So keep yourself hydrated this summer. Check out Holy, they are fantastic drinks. I have one with me all the time, and you'll love them this summer.
I'm driving
so
a
thanks
sec.
to Holy, and
I'll
do check
reply
it
to
out.
this
But now
in
back
a
to
second
something
once I've
really
delivered this
interesting, because it appears that Robert Jenrick is calling out Keir Starmer as being a little bit of a hypocrite. Remember the break into the RAF base?
Should I just send a suggestion? That'd be easier.
Choosing my words carefully there. Well, despite Keir Starmer condemning this as a disgraceful raid on a UK airbase, it now appears that he defended RAF protesters in court. Now that by itself is not a problem, necessarily, because we are subject to the cap rank rule. But as Kimmy Badenoch put it, it's nothing to do with the cap rank rule, and it appears for reasons that I'll explain just now. But first, the cap rank rule and what it means. Now, if as a barrister we get an instruction from a professional, now that includes a solicitor or a company that is licensed to instruct, but that's really complicated, so I'll explain that later. If we get an instruction from a solicitor and we are available, the fee is a proper fee, and the work is within our level of competency, and we are not prohibited from doing it for any reasons of conflict of interest or anything of that nature.
Yeah, fuck that.
Then we must do the case on what we call the cab rank rule.
Visit service.
And it comes from that phrase.
Right.
If you picture a line of cabs lining up, they must take whichever passenger comes to the front of the queue, without any kind of discrimination whatsoever. Now, we are under a general duty not to discriminate against anyone, but the cab rank rule is special. We must take that case if we're available to do it. Unless, of course, as I say, there's a conflict or something of that nature. But that doesn't apply if you are doing work pro bono, which is what appears to be the case here. Because Robert Jenrick now claims that while Starmer claims that he had no choice to represent a woman arrested over 500 times breaking into an RAF base, that's not necessarily true. Robert Jenrick claims that she said he had volunteered to do this for free. The cap rank rule and the exceptions to it are set out at C29 and 30 of our handbook, which contains what used to be called the Code of Conduct. RC29 is the cap rank rule. RC30 says that the cap rank rule of C29 does not apply. And if you look down to the second page here, point 8, one of the exceptions to the cap rank rule is where the barrister has not been offered a proper fee for services. And this even applies to situations such as a conditional fee agreement or damage-based agreement. Those briefly are conditional fee, you only pay if you win, or if you've been offered a damage-based agreement such that you carry out the instructions and you are entitled as the barrister to a percentage of damages at the end of it. On that basis, the barrister may refuse instructions on the basis that the fee is not proper if the fee is structured in one of those ways. Now, of course, we still may not discriminate against anybody, but that is not what Robert Jenrick says happened here. He says that Keir Starmer did this for free. Take a listen to this.
In 2001, Starmer volunteered for free to represent a woman who'd broken into US and UK air bases 500 times, presumably because he had sympathy with their anti-British, anti-Western political views. And this week, Danity lied. They said he'd been forced to take on the case because of the so-called cab rank rule. But look, that is not true. The cab rank rule doesn't apply when you take on cases pro bono as a volunteer. So Starmer needs to apologise for their lies and set the record straight. Oh, and one last thing. It's a good job he failed in that case back then, or else Palestine Action, who broke into an airbase this week, would have had a legal precedent, a defence against their despicable action against our armed forces and our military bases.
And so Robert Jenrick has written to Keir Starmer demanding that he correct this record and says as follows: in 2001 you chose to defend Lindis Percy, a serial trespasser arrested more than 500 times for breaking into the RAF and US air bases to disrupt and sabotage military aircraft. You volunteered your time pro bono to argue that such attacks could be lawful, presumably because you had sympathy with her actions. The cab rank rule, he says, cannot excuse that choice, and for reasons I've just explained, that's right. We are not forced by the cab rank rule to take on a case pro bono. That just wouldn't make sense. We cannot be forced to take on a case for free. I hope that's common sense. He goes on, whereas here no fee is offered, RC 30.8, the bit I've just showed you, of the Bar Standards Board Handbook, removes any duty to act. Downing Street's ludicrous claim you had no choice owing to the cab rank rule is therefore false. He says you must now correct it and make clear you acted voluntarily. That's important for reasons I'll come back to in a moment. He says by championing Miss Percy and others, you tried to create a precedent that would make politically motivated sabotage of defence assets immune from punishment. Had you succeeded, last week's raid on RAF base Bryce Norton would today be on firm legal ground. He says you then celebrated risking national security by featuring Miss Percy in your 2020 leadership launch video. Once a lawyer selects a client for political promotion, that clearly becomes an endorsement of them and their actions. The public is entitled to interpret your views as anti-British and a threat to our national security. Our armed forces deserve a Prime Minister who has their back, not one who spent a career defending and then lauding those who attacked them. Now, you may well think that this is an anti-British Prime Minister based on what Robert Jenrick says here. Because if indeed, as it appears the case from Robert Jenrick, Keir Starmer acted pro bono for free to defend this lady who was arrested more than 500 times breaking into RAF and US air bases to disrupt and sabotage military aircraft, how then can you have confidence in your Prime Minister that he is acting in the interests of the United Kingdom and its military bases? Now, this is as serious as it gets, folks. Not only is he facing rebellion from his own party for welfare cuts and all of these kind of things, and disrupting all areas across the country, from farmers to private school children at schools that have been teaching for hundreds of years that are now closing down. Not only all those things apply, but now he also stands accused of misleading Parliament for saying that he was forced to take on this case when, if it turns out that he acted pro bono, that is simply not true, because the Bar Standards Board Handbook makes it absolutely clear that we are not obliged by the cab rank rule if we've not been offered a proper fee for services. That would simply not make any sense whatsoever. So let me know what you think about that in the comments below. Please do like the video and subscribe. Check out Holy, they are fantastic. And as always, thank you for watching. Many of you must be wondering by now why we cannot prosecute politicians for fraud for saying that they're going to do one thing and then doing another when they eventually get into office, or even saying one thing while they're in office which seems in some respects to be patently untrue. Now that's a very good question with a frustratingly and rather disappointingly simple answer, which I'll come to in this video, but not before I expose what I think is I can only describe it as gaslighting the general public, and I'll explain why. With a shocking discrepancy between what was said before and what's happening now. I know I'm sort of grinning as I say it because nothing is shocking anymore, let's face it. But if you do like this sort of brutal analysis of what's going on with a sprinkling of the law and how it applies to politics and everyday events, please do subscribe to the channel. I am ever grateful for you doing that. About half of you still don't do that but watch regularly. I'd really appreciate it if you do. I depend on you, the viewer, because I have no big media company behind me. So thank you very much for that. So where do we start? Well, I'm going to start with this tweet here from this post from Keir Starmer, which has been described by many as gaslighting the general public. That is, trying to make you believe a thing when most people know that that's not really true. Which is sort of the crux of this video, getting to the truth of things. He says, "We are putting more money in your pocket. From April, millions of working people will get a pay rise." Now he's talking, of course, as somebody did quite rightly point out, he's talking, of course, to the increase in minimum wage. But he fails to mention, and nowhere is there any mention in that post of things that are going up in price. So whilst he may, on a technical level, be correct that millions of people would get a pay rise if they are on minimum wage and the minimum wage goes up, this does obviously not take into account the vast swathes of people that are not on minimum wage and will not get a pay rise. It doesn't take account of those that received winter fuel allowance that will no longer receive it. Doesn't take into account the millions of parents who send their children to private schools who will have to pay 20% VAT on those fees, which is many thousands of pounds a year. Doesn't include any reference to council tax increases, which is quite a pointed subject, which I'm going to come back to a little bit further on in this video. Doesn't take into account water bill increases, electricity and gas increases, employer national insurance increases, which of course are all borne by the worker. Don't be fooled into thinking that it's the company's responsibility and nothing to do with you. If the company is paying it one way or another, you're paying it. And also, together with that, the lower threshold for paying these increases in employer national insurance. Stamp duty increases, the energy price cap I've mentioned is going up, and very much more. We've talked about the farm inheritance tax, and not to mention that whilst he says some people will be getting a pay rise, how many thousands of people are actually losing their jobs because these companies are cutting their staff because they need to cover their costs. And not to mention, while we're talking about companies in general, the thousands of companies and retail consortiums and health and hospitality consortiums that have said their prices are going to have to go up because they have to cater for the additional costs. Then, not to mention yesterday, my Money Channel video. I'll link my Money Channel below if you want to learn how to create wealth and all of that sort of stuff. Subscribe to my Money Channel, I'll link down below. Because cash ISAs are now apparently under threat as well. Because lo and behold, Rachel Reeves has sat down with a group of companies that said, we've got an idea. Why don't you take these billions of pounds that people have got saved away safely in cash ISAs and let us invest them in riskier investments? Now, of course, they would want to do that because then there's all sorts of fees and advice and products and everything else that they can dump the money into. Whereas people have actually put it in there for a reason. It's a safe place to save the money, with a little bit of a tax incentive on not paying the tax on the interest in that account. More about that in my money video. I've got a deep dive into ISAs. If you don't understand them, I don't expect everybody to understand them. A lot of people are either not interested or just haven't had the time to look into them. I've got a video which explains it for you in great detail, about 18 minutes worth of detail. I'll link that below. Go and watch that as well. But nonetheless, those cash ISAs are now potentially under threat as well. But we come back to the hypocrisy and saying one thing meaning another and doing another in many cases. Let me take you to a video which I'm going to borrow a small portion of from Talk TV. I'll link below for full credit. Listen to this. This is what Keir Starmer said about council tax before they got into office.
Labour would freeze council tax next year. Yes, you heard it right. Not a penny more on your council tax. Not a penny more than the bill you paid last year.
But that's not true. It's patently untrue. So how can a politician, I will explain a little bit later in this video, how can a politician make a statement, make a claim, which turns out to be patently untrue? And it is patently untrue because I talked in a previous video about a question mark over whether there's unlawful council tax rises, because it would be unlawful for councils to increase the tax beyond the 5% cap, which was set by the Tories. They set it as a 5% threshold beyond which they cannot increase the council tax without a referendum of the local community to say, yes, we agree to increasing our council tax beyond 5%. And without that referendum, without a yes vote from local constituents, they couldn't do it. Save for they could always go begging to the government and say, please let us increase the council tax beyond this 5%. And that's what I talked about in a previous video. I'll link that below as well. And in response to all of that, it was reported yesterday that 6 of these requests for council tax increases have been approved. Now, the referendum is required beyond the 5% overall cap. As I say, the standard increase is 3% plus a further 2% for those on social care responsibilities and all that sort of stuff, with a maximum of 5. Beyond that, they need permission. So 6 of these requests to go beyond that 5% cap have now been approved. So clearly, the statement from Keir Starmer here, where he says not a penny more on your council tax, is patently untrue, because 6 of these have now been given permission. The Windsor Maidenhead warned that 25% would be necessary. The government's allowed a maximum of 9%. So this appears to me to be the old case of ask for very much more than we really want, so that when it comes down to what we get, doesn't seem so bad, does it? Well, actually 9% is obviously almost double the cap that they were supposed to increase it by, without permission, a referendum in the local area to say, yes, we agree to this increase. 7.5% has been approved for Birmingham, and this, bearing in mind, this is only a year after it was increased by 9.99% due to their financial difficulties at the time. So this isn't just a 7.5% increase, this is a 7.5% increase on top of the 9.99% increase from a year ago. They initially planned to increase the rate by the same amount and had a deficit of £165 million. And this all seems a little bit dangerous to me, because allowing these local authorities to increase by these percentages when they've already increased it and ostensibly mismanaging money, just not operating efficiently enough to stay within budget, they're just allowing them more. And now the second year, Somerset has applied for a council tax rise above the limit, but this is the first time that it's been accepted. Now they can increase it by 7.5% next year. Bradford, they sought permission to increase by 15%. Now they've been approved for a 10% rise. So I think there's a summary table down here of all of these that have been allowed to increase. So up to and including 10% for Bradford. 6 of these have now been approved, despite Keir Starmer saying that not a penny more would be added to the council tax. Now, this comes back to the question, how is it that they can make these statements and not be held accountable, not be prosecuted for fraud in the worst sense of the word? Now, there's a very simple reason for that. And in fact, politicians have previously been sued. In fact, I think it was 2019, somebody crowdfunded to the tune of £300,000 to prosecute Boris Johnson for arguments that he misled the public over Brexit and the money from the NHS and all of that sort of stuff. And he received a summons, but he challenged that in the High Court, and the High Court quashed the summons, saying that it was politically motivated and vexatious in nature. So they did try to hold Boris Johnson to account for what he had said, and the High Court threw that out. And that is the crux of the reason. If these statements are political in nature, and an attack upon them, let's say, are allegations of fraud and allegations that they've misled the public, lied, etc., they would all be seen as politically motivated and de facto vexatious. Now, there is a huge philosophical debate as to whether we should be able to prosecute politicians and hold them accountable for what they've said. And I personally, opinion alert here, I personally think we should be able to hold them accountable for what they've said in their manifesto. I think if a politician says, here's our manifesto and here's what we're going to do, I think if they don't do that, it should trigger some kind of election, or it should trigger their removal from office by way of a vote from the general public or something like that. Because quite obviously, if their voter base have voted a politician into office because of their manifesto, and then they don't deliver on that manifesto, surely the public then have an ongoing say. They don't, by the way, but surely they should have an ongoing say as to whether that politician remains in office, because that's how they got into office, with their manifesto. The only way that works, and this is why I will bang on about this for, intermittently with other videos I will do for the next few years until the next election, so that people are aware that the only way to undo any of this is by another general election, which unless Keir Starmer resigns and unless there's a vote of no confidence or whatever else, or unless he calls another general election, unless any of those things happen, none of this is going to change until the next general election. In which case, Keir Starmer wants another term. I very much doubt he'll get another term at this rate, from judging by the public response. There are a lot of people still support him, obviously, but judging by the general public response, I don't think he's going to get another term. A lot of the things that he's saying that on the surface are positive are going to take 10 years to come to fruition.
I'm off some food, guys, for a minute.
It's very doubtful that many of those we'll see during his parliament anyway. Now, whether or not you can hold someone accountable to those is a very philosophical debate, and I think we should be able to hold them to account. But the only way you can do that is by another